All right, guys, so I got the flipper on, adjusted, finalized, finished on the right side of the car. Now I've got the driver's side to do. So I plan on getting ready to get started on it. I actually learned a couple of things yesterday messing with these flippers, and I'm going to pass it on because something that I found could quite possibly cause an issue for some of you guys trying to do this as well. And had I have not taken those flippers all the way apart, all the little brackets, pieces, and everything, and re-riveted them in there and checked, operation of it after I reassembled it, I might not have noticed this deal, because it made me think in my head, why would they do it that way? So I'm going to run you through that. So this is going to be like a follow-up of a few things that I did and one of the things I learned. But I'm happy with it. It's all adjusted. All the windows are adjusted correctly. Everything's even. Like the windows ain't out of sync or nothing like that. And the flipper closes at the back when you close the door. So it's awesome. I love it. And other than my fingerprints all over everything. All right, so what I've got here is the left side flipper. And I just took all my clamps off so the glue could dry overnight. So the felt strips are glued in and it is pretty much done. Now, I had talked about this in my very first video of common problems that cause the flipper, once you bolt your flippers on or screw them on there and you close your door, the front is down like it's supposed to be, but the rear is kicked out. The usual suspect is all the center screws are too tight. So if you leave your rear screw and your front screw tight and then loosen off these pretty far, then open and close your door, and see how it operates. 9 times out of 10, the flipper will close. But I learned something else yesterday that could cause that flipper not to fully go down all the way and maybe stick out just a little bit. So I'm going to run you through that because you guys might run into this. Now, this is called flipper windlace. This is the Danchuck one. And this is something interesting to note here. I had another set here. I think these were 10 in, but I am not sure. So if I was going to do another set, I would get the Danchuck because there's a big reason why. These 10 in ones right here are paper thin. They are paper thin. They're not wedge shaped. They're just basically paper thin. They have a little bitty tiny, they have an indent in them, but it's not like as prominent as that Danchuck one is right there. See how thick that is? So here is what I learned. Let me get this flipped around here like it's supposed to be. So when you get this windlace and you pull it out of the package, let me get rid of that one. That's confusing me here. When you get it out of the package, you'll notice one end is cut like a 45 degree. That's the front. This one back here is the rear. So if you notice this square cutout right here, there's another one here for 55 hardtop flippers, because 55 hardtops have 3 springs in them. Unless somebody's restored your car, you bought it used from somebody, and they built it from different flippers. But 55s had 3 springs. I'm not using 3 spring setup 55 ones. I'm using 56, 57 ones, one of the two. So when you reassemble your flipper, now right now it's open. I want you to watch right here in this square cutout, which this would go on top of that like that. I want you to watch what happens. See that piece of that flipper come poking up through there? Now it's gone. Now it's back up through there. So that is the flipper moving in and out. See how that comes up? So if you used these paper thin ones, that would basically not get to come up there very far. So it can cause that to be kicked out a little bit instead of going in. The Danchuck ones being thick like they are, look how thick that is. That is the perfect spacer for that to come up through there and not hit your roof or interfere with anything, so your flipper operates completely. Now, these seals, of course, any kind of rubber on metal is going to be a little bit on the grabby side, I guess you'd say. It kind of grips it. So the flippers, when you open the door, they pop open, but they kind of move real slow going back up. And it's because that leading edge of the door is up in this little channel right here. So this is the actual flipper door. It goes on the left side like that. This is the flipper part that folds down, but it has an edge right here, and that little indented rolled part right there, that's what that is for. When that's closed, that's supposed to set on there. So it basically keeps wind and water from getting in between here. Now, when I did that flipper yesterday, it wasn't quite going all the way down at the back. It was very close, it just wasn't quite. What I found out was the rubber seal, this was off just a little bit, and it was causing that piece to come in contact with the rubber. It wasn't letting it come up through there. So what I did was I got up in there with an X-Acto knife and I notched that out more, basically cut out the rubber, so this had room to go up in there. So keep that in mind when you're doing those. And again, I would use the Dan chuck. They're not paying me to say that. I'm just telling you that that's thick. So that's the one I would use. Also, these right here, they do not, the holes don't line up. So these don't work at all. I tried both of them. There's a few of them, most of them I think do, but there's one end one that doesn't or something. I don't remember, but anyway, I'm not going to use them thin ones. Now, I don't think I really showed it that great. I talked about it, so if you skip through on any of those videos, you're going to miss some information. So when I first put the flipper on the passenger side, I just set that up on there and basically put the screws through and let that be tension set in there, is all I did. Now when I was done screwing it to the roof, this edge that rolls over, you can actually see it, was wavy. It was popped out in places and I didn't like it. So at that point I took some masking tape and I taped off this channel in here, brought the tape up to about right here, and I spray glued the bottom of that rubber because I don't want it in here because it'll be gripping the door. So I just sprayed this part right here with aerosol contact cement. Then I sprayed the top of the flipper, which I had masking tape on this and on this edge here, and I masked off this, and I had tape stuffed up through the bottom of these as well. So no spray glue got down through anything, and I didn't want it getting on the outside edge and making a mess. So I spray glued that, spray glued the rubber, I let it tack a minute, and then I placed it on there, and I got to put it on there perfectly straight. That way when I was done, that seal is permanently attached to that flipper, and it has a perfectly straight line on it with that rubber seal. It's not all wavy looking. Then, after that was done and on there, I used my camper seal I talked about. Now this is just a cutoff from the one yesterday. But what I did was I put a strip on here and I put it on top. I basically peeled it and stuck that to the top of that rubber welting like this. Just like that. From front to back, all the way. Now the idea is that foam seal, you want to get it back away from this because if you put it right up there to the edge where that's rolled like that, you're going to see that. So you want this in quite a ways. So I put it about midway. Now, the one that I did on the car, it's put on about here, which I would say it's probably, I don't know, what is that, a 1/4 inch probably from the outside edge. But I did it all the way to the end right here. Then I got a propane torch and a screwdriver, and I heated up the end of the screwdriver, a flat blade, and I poked it through all of the holes so it would melt through that sponge seal, and I would be able to see the screw holes in the roof. And at that point I put it together, and then I had a problem. I could not tighten these center screws. If I even snugged them lightly, it would bind up the back of the flipper and it wouldn't want to close. So I took it back off and I did what the factory did, and I talked about this in the earlier video. My original two-door Hardtop 55 that I bought, the flippers had never been off the car. So when I disassembled the car for restoration, I found out that they had washers on all the center slots. There was no washer on the end there, no washer on the end here. Now they had a single washer right here, and it was stuck to it with butyl. Had a single washer here. They had a double on that center one, and a double on that center one, and a single there. So when you place your washers on there, no washer, single washer, double washer, single washer, no washer. So when I did that, and I bolted it back on the car, the flippers worked flawlessly, and I was able to tighten all the screws down. So that was some interesting things to figure out right there. And I want to kind of show you this. Now, if you put, say, 2 washers, these are probably, I don't know, these aren't number 8 washers. These are a little bit larger, and I'm just using stainless steel from, I have a bunch of extras here, but I used all the same washers. But anyway, when you put, I put the washers on top of the sponge seal right here. And the reason I did is when I put that up there, you can squish that in that sponge seal all the way down. So it'll still seal to the roof and doesn't cause an issue. And even when I let off, it's still sunk in a little bit. It slowly comes back up. But anyway, I had to do the washers, and it's pretty much exactly what the factory did, and it worked for me. So when I was done, that flipper works perfectly, and I just barely had to modify that front flipper stop, this thing here that's kind of a mess to mess with. So I didn't have to grind all this down or anything like that. It ended up working. It is a little kind of tweaked looking. It has a little bit of a kick in it, but I don't really care. It's on there, and the flipper works, and if the flipper works, I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? So that was some of just a follow-up of some of the things I learned. But that is some very, very useful information if you have never messed with flippers before. And keep in mind, this is only my second hardtop set of flippers to mess with. So, still learning. So if I did 10 sets, I'd probably still learn. But I'm pretty happy with that. And I will say, you're going to need a little bit of butyl. The factory used butyl, you need to use it as well. This is 3M strip caulk, and you can get this at parts stores. This big box is pretty expensive. But you just take a little piece and you tear it off. You want to squish a whole piece all up in that corner of that roof up in there on hardtop. All of that up in there needs to be squished with that. And also, I put some up in here, so when the flipper went in there, it kind of helped squish it. And all it does is just help improve a seal. You're not going to see it, you know what I mean? You're not really going to notice it. But the factory used it. Even if you seam sealed this, I would still put that butyl in there. But anyway, guys, that's a follow-up. I thought the video I did last night of finalizing that side would be it, but I wanted to go ahead and run through because the video doesn't, I kind of skip around a little bit, and some of the footage got cut down so it wouldn't be an hour-long video. So, you know, when the videos are super long, people skip through, and you're going to miss information if you skip. So, I just thought I'm basically just trying to help everybody out. But if you need to do flippers, that's how I did mine. Hope it helps somebody else. If it helps one person, my job here is done. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not an expert on these, but I'm happy with the way mine turned out so far. But now I've still got the other one to do. I just jinxed myself. Thanks for watching.